it's becoming perfectly clear to all Americans that the concept of neutral, objective journalism it's no longer. The newsrooms want to pretend that it still exists like that, but for the most part, everybody sees that we exist in a very stratified media right now. There's right media and there's left media, and the people who exist in the mainstream media newsrooms are fighting I think it's a losing battle for the hearts and minds of the American people. They're losing subscriptions. The channels that maintain this status quo are losing viewership, and they wonder why. It's not their business model. It's that people can see through the collusion and the conspiracy. This week, the biggest news story in the world that is being ignored is a Watergate of epic proportion in the newsroom. It was called JournoList. It was 400 mainstream media journalists from Newsweek, Politico, Bloomberg, Washington Post, and many other progressive places. And in that JournoList, Spencer Ackerman, to the group, when trying to figure out a way among this group of people who are supposed to be objective, concocted a strategy to stop people from talking about Reverend Wright. He said, we should accuse Karl Rove or Fred Barnes or someone of being racist. That will stop it. Not only does Spencer Ackerman state that, 399 other people in that room who were with the Washington Post and Politico and Newsweek and Bloomberg sat and watched that strategy be devised and implemented. It is exactly the same strategy that Mary Frances Berry talks about. The collusion of the media is the elephant in the middle of the room in this electoral cycle. It wasn't the one before it, but I guarantee you in the next 4 years, if the mainstream media doesn't correct its overt attempt to throw elections, to make sure that the First Amendment is not applied, that people are shut up, that people are harassed and their lives are ruined with slander. Calling a person a racist is a terrible thing. And when Spencer Ackerman wantonly throws around, let's accuse just anyone of racist, that person is actively colluding to try and slander and destroy a person's character. And the press abided by it, and when it was exposed, it has buried that story. That's how desperate the press is to control the narrative, and the American people now have the ability through technology.
But how do you see yourself, and speaking of that technology, how do you see yourself playing a role moving forward with what you do?
I like to consider myself a Pied Piper. I have thousands of people who write for me. I have people who come to me as researchers and who want to change the mainstream media. For the longest time, alternative media acted as a checks and balance on the mainstream media. They'd say, hey, you know, Dan Rather, I'm not sure that what you're reporting about President Bush is true, and they would dig in. And the hope was that somebody at the top, an Andrew Hayward, David Weston, would say, you guys, that we live in a very transparent world. Everybody can see everything. I think we're going to have to start being really, really extra careful about reporting the truth here and being objective, because that's the standard that we claim that we are. And the problem is that instead of becoming more transparent and more accountable to the audience and more accountable to the obvious truths that are exposed, it seems to me that the reporter class, recognizing it may not even have a job in a year or 2 or 3, is just saying, to hell with it. We got into this thing for politics. We're political beings, and that the best way to affect politics isn't through politicking, it's through using the media. Media is an incredibly powerful tool, and if the mainstream media is not going to listen to the people, and if it's not going to be fair to the people, and if it's going to craft false narratives such as that the Tea Party is racist, then the American people are going to start writing back, they're going to start reporting back, and they're going to start filming back. And that's what we were able to prove with 4 separate videos. The day that Congressman Carson said that the N-word was said on the Cannon House step buildings, we went back, reenacted the exact moment in time that they said that it happened, and we can show you Congressman Carson and Lewis walking down the steps briskly with Congressman John Shattuck walking a beat behind with a smile on his face. No N-word was thrown, nobody crowded around them. It was a concoction, and when we challenged them on them with the new media, everybody went silent. The Congressional Black Caucus wouldn't talk about it, and the NAACP has resurrected that to the point that it has to be brought now to fruition. Whose line? Are those 4 videos line, or is the who's telling the truth? The NAACP, the Congressional Black Caucus, and the mainstream media, or those 4 videos that I possess that the mainstream media refuses to show?